What's up, Alex James?
What up? What up?
We got another episode of
The three pillars of man.
Yes, sir. Let's get it.
I love it. I
Let's
love it.
get it. We're on a good couple episodes now.
Yes.
We've got some for people to go back and listen to, and there's actually a library.
Yeah, man. I'm proud of
Um,
us, man. We're rolling.
yeah, we're getting on a cadence,
Yeah.
slowly but surely. We're
We get
getting
a
on a
little bit of
cadence.
visibility, man. It's
Yeah,
not, it's not on a grand scale or anything, but
right.
I think we're starting to make a little impact, just from different posts I've seen where people make a little comments saying, "Hey, this was right on time," or "Hey, this is what I needed." Like we've said before, man. We're just trying to build this brick by brick, and whoever lives we can affect, and or whoever wants to join us on this journey, man. I'm sold on it.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
happy.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what it's going to come down to is just the consistency of recording,
Yeah.
consistency of posting,
Yep.
and consistency of just posting on the social medias. And you've been killing that, bro.
Hey man, I appreciate it, man. It's funny, man. This is a new space for me.
Yeah,
I'm not. I don't have like a technical background as far as like editing and all that. There's a whole bunch of people that do that way better than I do. But I like it, man, because I'm learning as I go. I think we're both learning as we go,
yeah.
and so the beauty of this is we're in this for the long haul. So we're just going to continue to get better and better. And if hey, if any of y'all have any comments on how we can do this better, man, we're open to it. So
Amen. James.
man, man, I saw him. He sounded like my manager. He's like, "Hey James, oh I'm so sorry, Alex." Oh man, I love it,
Your
man.
face and my face.
I said, "Oh shit." Man, I'm back in the office. Oh,
Alex.
yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What are we focusing on, brother?
Today's episode is titled The Dangers in False Brotherhood, Loyalty versus Codependency. And to provide more context on this episode, we're going to read this quick theme. Not all brotherhood is built on strength. Sometimes what appears to be loyalty is actually emotional dependence, fear of abandonment, or an unhealthy need for validation. And so the first talking point we're going to cover is defining what true brotherhood is versus what false brotherhood is. And my brother, of course, I'm going to start with you. What do you think your definition of what a true brotherhood is versus what's a false brotherhood is?
The same thing that you would look for in a relationship.
Hmm, pretty much.
The definition is someone that's going to hold you accountable,
Right.
which is sometimes hard to do,
Very hard.
because you do run into that. Am I going to be a good friend? You know what I mean? Like not even good friend. Am I going to be the friend here? Or am I going to be the accountability partner?
Right.
Right. Sometimes you run into that. But I think a true friend is going to tell you when you're screwing up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be this half-assed situation. It's going to be a conversation. It's going to be like, hey, let me talk to you a minute.
Right.
Right. The same thing that in some cases where your dad would be that person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That person that you know for a fact is going to tell you exactly how it is, what it is, because they genuinely care about you as a human being.
Yeah.
And I heard a quote the other day that, no one's going to care about your success as much as your parent.
Right.
Because other people will say that they will, but nobody gets proud as your parents does.
Right.
Um,
I think, and just a apology there for me, I think that quote is true because of the fact that if you're fortunate enough to have your parents involved in your life and, they've invested and even sacrificed a significant amount of time, resources to
Yeah.
get you where you are. And so, I mean, if you think about it, right, when you invest that much time and resource into somebody, why would you want to be a yes man to them?
mhm.
When you know, like, okay, if I become a yes man to, my son, daughter, or whoever, I'm going to really lead them in a ditch.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that just makes sense to me. Like, of course, the person that's going to be on your ass 24/7, the person that's going to tell you how it is, regardless of their tone. Like it could be a tone that you don't necessarily like, but
Yeah.
it's as long as the correct intention is there behind what's being said, then it's all good in my book.
Yeah. And I think the cross there is you can find that in brotherhood.
Yeah.
You can find someone who is going to be genuinely proud for who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think to multiply that out, you are also going to find truth in that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a lot of truth in brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching a video the other day. And it was this guy was handing out like a super hot chip,
Mm-hmm.
like the one chip challenge.
Yeah.
And he was basically saying like if you could eat multiple of these, then I'll pay you $40 or whatever.
All right.
And in the video, you see this guy, and he's got a whole group of guys behind him, and they're like, do it, do it. They're hyping him up.
Yeah.
Only because they want to see him ultimately in pain.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, struggle. 100%.
Yeah. Which there is a good version of that, and this is kind of what the mindset kind of took me in was there is a benefit in that, right? You want to see your friend kind of mess up a little bit, like that's the whole point of like jujitsu, and you have
going
a
to the
good
gym,
right, yeah, you want to see your friend struggle, but at what point that there were other people in that group that were like, eat another one, right. When you can already tell this man he's beat up. He's
in pain. The chip was
he's not only in pain, bro. He's not doing well. And then there's people around him and that group of friends who is telling him like, eat another one, another one.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, at what point do you cross that line? Yeah. At what point are those so quote unquote friends? At what point are they just trying to see you come down some?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Get off your high horse a
little
bit. Right.
Or are they being crabs in a bucket?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And at some level of that, you've got to recognize who's crabs in your buckets and who are birds, right? Because you're gonna rise with birds.
You know what the hard thing about that is? Like it's never apparent right away. A lot of times it's going to take you going through the mud to figure out like who's really your true brother versus who's like your enemy essentially. And that's the unfortunate thing about it is sometimes experience is the best teacher here, where it's like, okay, because it's in the beginning everybody, at least on optics wise, it looks the same. Like in that example, like everybody's like, yeah, eat the chip. Yeah. You can't really tell like who's like telling you to eat the chip as far as like, okay, I just want to see you eat it, then like we're good. It's just a joke versus like, no, I want to see him eat it. Like, I want him to throw up. I want him to like really just be in pain. And I just want to laugh.
There's a difference between the cats that are going to be in the group that tell you to eat the chip and then have that jug of milk in their hand. Right. Versus the ones that are saying, hey, double up on this. Right. And then hey, when you go into the gas station or whatever, and you're spending that $40. Right. Let me get 5. You know what I mean? Like that's a whole different concept. But I mean, you saw that taking this just on a different level. But Young Dolph, his own crew, right? The whole idea behind that is like sometimes it's just it's your crew.
Yeah, it's your people.
And how are you going to be able to determine that? And I think the better and the faster that you can get better at being able to find out or recognize.
Discernment.
You'll be able to move forward. But I think with that also comes the idea that you got to be okay with being alone for a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's where actually that's a good get to our next talking point here. How do you define whether somebody is being loyal to you and is looking out for you versus someone is essentially being a leech, a parasite.
Yeah.
You know, how can you, I guess, what are some attributes in a person that's a true brother versus a person that's a leech, in your opinion?
You saying that made me think so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that that's an easy determination or not determination.
Assessment.
That's an easy assessment, bro. The folks that when you're moving out of your place, and you say, hey man, I could really use some help moving some stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, nah.
Right. That's just a basic. That's a basic test. Oh yeah.
That's the number one test.
Yeah.
Like you see it all the time.
Yeah.
Bro, I saw it
Yeah.
when I moved out of my old place.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey, I just need a couple guys to help me out. My brother didn't show up.
Yeah.
My, whoever didn't show up.
That's where the excuses came in. Hey man,
I got this,
I
and I'm like, bet, we can change the day. Whatever.
Right.
The excuses came. But then I also got to see very clearly that some people were like, hey, I can't spend all day, but I can give you about an hour.
And
right?
exactly.
Bro, you help me move 2 pieces of furniture, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Right? Like the idea behind it is I know what I would go to if they're not willing to do what you would be willing to do.
Yeah.
Don't be in that room.
I love that you said that, man. It's a, like you said, it's like if I'm willing to do it and they're not willing to do that if I'm willing to do that for them, but they're not willing to do that for me, that's how you know this is more of a parasite host relationship versus brother relationship. And I mean, you see it all the time, man. I mean, you see it with athletes where, they come from humble beginnings, and then all of a sudden they're into this new found wealth, and all of a sudden family members coming out the woodwork, friends coming out the woodwork, people that they grew up with.
Yeah,
and that's a danger in itself too, bro, because it's like, yeah, we've been in situations where like people that we've been through, different situations with, people who we've grown up with, we feel like this sense of like, and at least on the surface level, like this sense of loyalty to them, like where it's like, oh yeah, man, we've been through the trenches together, we've been through fire, been through hell together. But then what the trap is, you get trapped into that, and now it's like you're in this guilt trip where it's like, well, yeah, they did look out for me in that one situation. Now I'm on top. I gotta look out for them. But a true brother is, hey, we've been through this, and at the end of the day, I just want to see you win. Like I don't need nothing back. If you kick something back to me, cool.
Yeah.
I'm appreciative of it, but I'm here to support you in whatever you do. I'm not expecting anything back. Right. And so I think that's where you see a lot of athletes where they go from being millionaires to now they're like flat broke. Yeah. And it's because people were take.
And sometimes it's your family, bro.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, man. Like you see a lot of times people fall out with family members because of whether it's money or I mean, really it can be just money, and there's this sense of people saying like, hey, well, I raised you, or I took care of you when you didn't have nothing, so I need something back.
Yeah.
And then you have to question yourself. It's like, were you just taking care of me because you knew I could potentially be in this on the top of the mountain, and you were expecting like once I get there, I'm gonna get something back?
Yep.
And again, you don't know that until you're actually at the top of the mountain.
Yep.
And then sometimes you don't really know until you fall off, and then you realize like, damn, they actually weren't here for me. They were here for what I could provide them.
Right.
And so that's, like you said, brother, that's the definition of how do you discern from loyalty and codependency. Sometimes you gotta fall off the top of the mountain to see, well, okay, I'm back at the bottom. Who's here? Sometimes it can be nobody, where you have to go on that journey alone and essentially rebuild yourself, man. So
yeah, and then there's also that part of it is being able to recognize in yourself where you fall, right, inside of that, because a lot of times, I don't know, offhand, but I can imagine that those people aren't being that way on purpose, right? I would imagine, and sure that there are some, just like there's psychopaths in the world, but
Yeah.
the idea behind it is that they may do these people realize that they are this way, because
Mhm.
what is the quick test of how many times are you turning things down, right? Like, because I turn things down all the time.
Right.
In the idea of, like, my friends will be like, hey, you come, we're going to this brewery or whatever. And I'm like, nah, I can't.
Yeah, I got something to do. Right.
But if they were to call me and be like, hey, I need to move, I'd be like, all right, bet, whatever you need.
Yeah.
Like, it's the difference in whatever I can. I don't know. I try my very best that I fight myself with this sometimes, because I'm like, man, I don't ever really hang out with nobody like that no more.
Yeah.
But I can also guarantee it. Like, you call me tomorrow and you're like, hey, I need a 6 foot hole. You got it.
Yeah.
Like, it's that mindset to me. But if you call me and be like, hey, let's go to dinner on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do my best.
Yeah.
But there's no promises. But if you need me and you actually need me,
yeah,
it's a done deal, right? Like, and I try to find that middle ground, but then I also recognize that there are some moments when I was growing up that I was not that human being. I would dodge and ditch on certain things.
Yeah, on certain people. And I mean, I look at that like this too, bro. Like, we can. I think it just depends on the type of relationship you have, because you do have brothers who, like, y'all don't really hang out, but
Yeah.
like, if something serious was going on or you needed help with something like serious, there's no doubt. Yeah, I'll be
Yeah.
there. Hey, I can give you an hour, or they'll find a way to get to you and make it happen. I'm more wary of people where you can have a good time with them, but if you need them, they vanish.
Yeah.
So I would rather have a brother, to your point, where it's like, hey, bro, what you think about just going, smoke a cigar for a minute? Hey, bro, I can't, man. I'm working on something. And if that was me, okay, yeah, bro, handle your business,
Yeah.
bro. We can. This is not a end all be all situation,
Right.
I think sometimes with people you hang out with, and sometimes it can be a red, it's actually a red flag where it's like, they always hit me up for like having a good time and wanting to go. And there's nothing wrong with having a good time with people. Like, let me just get that clear. But if you tell me, hey, I can't do it because of this, that, and the third, and I have an issue with that,
That's a problem.
that's a red flag.
That's a
It's like,
problem.
hey, bro, you'll never go out, man. Come on, man, hang out, da da da. But then sometimes you gotta ask yourself where it's like, well, bro, I remember I had a serious issue, or I needed somebody to talk to, and you weren't there, but you're hitting me up to just to have a good time.
Yeah.
So are we really brothers here, or are we just acquaintances? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's okay to have, those types of people, but I think overall the moral of the story is being able to figure that out, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned, that's kind of how you handle that. And I think that's good.
Yeah.
I think it's a good red flag to have in your arsenal of, okay, well, I'm always having a good time with this person, but if I need them, they're not here.
Yeah, and also, man, you gotta have people in your, I like to say, a committee of men who understand you. Like, for example, like, let's say I hit you up with like, hey, man, I need help with something, if you came back to me and said, hey, bro, like, I'll be honest with you, man, I got a lot going on, me and the missus, or hey, I'm just not doing well. You gotta have people that understand.
Yeah.
You gotta have brothers that understand. Like, if I asked you to go out somewhere and you came back to me, it's like, hey, bro, I'm just in a bad place right now. It's like, oh, well, bro, you need me to come? You need to talk, or like, what's
We
going
had
on?
that moment.
Yeah, bro.
We had that moment.
Exactly, bro. Like, it can't be a one-way street, bro.
Yeah.
It can't be a take and give. It gotta be a give instead of like a give take.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's, and you gotta, and honestly, it's on us too, where like sometimes we have to say no.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and we don't have to feel guilty about it either.
No.
I think if you're around people that make you feel guilty about you saying no, and that's another red flag.
Yeah.
And sometimes we end up emptying our cup is because we're always saying we're always there for that person, right? We're always there. Hey, wherever you need me, I'm there. But then they're not pouring back into us,
Right.
and it's just like how can I operate off an empty cup?
Yeah. And I that's something that I've tried to be very, very clear with. Because I started finding myself, and this comes with that of self-evaluation a little bit, but I started finding myself like my friends would be like, "Hey, we're going out to the burger, whatever, whatever. Are you gonna be there?" And I would say maybe,
Yeah,
and me knowing myself like, "Nah, I'm gonna be working."
yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
And I didn't like the unclarity, like the unclearness of that gave,
Right.
right? Because then it's like,
You gave them a gray area.
yeah,
Right.
and I don't want to operate in that anymore.
Same.
And
Same.
so I just started being like, hey, look, I'm not gonna make it, but if anything changes, I will, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I think for me also, like I've always had an issue with like saying no and feeling guilty about it. But what I'm still learning this today. Like, say no and feel that guilt, but just navigate through it. Like, just understand, like, hey, nah, I can't do it, man. And
Yeah.
then, once you say it, you're gonna have this internal guilt where it's like, no, what should I? Maybe I should go out. Maybe I should,
Yeah.
do, whatever. But no, we just if you say let your word be your word. If you said, hey, I can't do it, then be okay with whatever consequences come after that. You saying no.
I think that's where a lot of the growth is.
Yeah.
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 And I've me too. I've also had a lot of that, right? And which can lend itself to not being truthful in other things. Because you're trying to people please, or you're trying to, have this idea of like, well, I'm not gonna, I had this with Zara. Like I just wasn't truthful about something. And it's not that I lied, I just withheld information, which is considered being untruthful.
Right.
Right. And so I did that sat with me for so long. Like and obviously she already knew because she's a girl, but women know things before they ask. Right. And ultimately that was an issue with us, but one of those things where that happened early on, and I was like, there's no point. There's no point in dishonesty.
Right.
Right. There's literally no point, because if you can't sit there and sit in the fire, why are you putting yourself in the fire?
Right.
There's no point. And if you can't hold what's coming to you when you are truthful, then what is the point?
And you know what that could lead to, bro? That could lead to like resentment as well. Like if I'm always saying, if I'm not speaking my true feelings or being transparent about how I feel about certain situations, whether it's with your brother or your partner or etc., and that can build resentment because of the fact that because you didn't say it outwardly, now you're feeling it internally. The man, I really don't feel it. Man, I'm tired, but you know what? Like, I'll do it. I'm not going to tell them how I really feel about the situation. And that and the quote we talked about, right? Loyalty without truth is slavery.
Yeah.
And once I read that quote, I was like, that's very deep, because if you think about it, right, if I'm just being a yes man, you're essentially being a slave to whatever situation that person is. You're being a slave to the situation that you're not saying your true feelings about. And if you keep doing that, you end up being the slave in a relationship, right? Like, it's just like you just do. Essentially, you're just like, they tell you, "Hey, we're doing this." Okay, sure. Okay, sure. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And you're not being transparent about like, no, actually, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't like that idea. I think we should do this idea.
Yeah.
And that's the dangers of, and that's not only a danger to yourself. That's always saying yes. That's being dangerous to that person as well, because if you're with somebody or you're around or you have a brotherhood where y'all are not creating some type of friction, and by what I mean is like y'all are not challenging each other on different ideas or ideologies on certain things, then it's like, what's the point of having being in that relationship or being in a brotherhood where like everybody thinks the same?
Yeah.
Because essentially, y'all all could be going in the same ditch because nobody has the balls to be like, hey, actually, I think that's a dumb idea.
Yeah.
Let's not do it.
I mean, you see that with the younger crowd, but you also see it with the older crowd that never get out of that space.
Yeah.
But to your point on that, I mean, I think that ties you not only to the situation, right? So when you don't say what you want to say,
Right.
or don't say what you need to say, or whatever, however that needs to be worded, but
Yeah.
not only are you just agreeing to the situation, you're agreeing to that person because now that person has an idea of you that you actually are not.
Right.
And then you also are now lying to yourself. So it's a three-way street. Like you're enslaving yourself to yourself.
Yep.
Because you're not being true to who you are.
Right. And now you're enslaved to your emotions that you're feeling inside
Correct.
because you're not being transparent.
And then you're also tied to the situation because now every time that let's just say like, hey, I want to go out and go hang out at the club or whatever, and you're like, I really don't want to do that, but I'm gonna say yes anyways because I don't want to cause any beef, or I didn't go the last 3 times or whatever,
Right.
And then now the entire time you're going to be there, more than likely you're going to be like anxious, or you're going to be this, and this, and this. And then now this other person has this idea that you enjoy doing these things.
Right.
And then so it's always going to be a thing in your life of just whatever. When all of it and ultimately will ultimately happen is the truth will come out. And you
eventually.
Right. And then the idea of who you are and who you've built this image of will no longer be. Right. And so the people that you've surrounded yourself with will no longer have the connection to you.
Right. And I can personally say, I fell into that trap before. It is people pleasing.
Yeah.
You're trying to be this image, this false image of, well, I'll just say for myself, right? I didn't want to let people down. So I will always be there for people, always help out wherever I can, or sacrifice things that I'm doing or that I'm trying to achieve to make sure that they're doing what they want to do.
Yeah.
And to your point, right? Like eventually you do, you hit a wall.
Yeah.
Because, like I said earlier, you're pouring into everybody's cup. Everybody's getting a piece of you, right? And then when you get your cup, you're looking at it, you're like, man, there's nothing in it.
Right.
And then you start to realize, like, man, nobody else poured into me though.
Yeah.
But you can't blame them. You blame. I had to blame myself. Like,
yeah,
I can't sit there and be mad. Like, well, damn, they didn't even reciprocate what I gave to them, or I didn't get nothing back. But that was my false expectation.
So to have an opposite thought on this,
yeah,
that can also feel the same way when someone's trying to grow you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can have a similar effect,
mm-hmm.
right? Because you're not used to going to the gym all the time.
And that's the dangers in like you can't really see like are they for me or against me?
And ultimately, I think that comes down to being able to run that evaluation effectively.
Yeah.
Because you can run an evaluation like, man, I don't really want to go to the gym, but ultimately, deep down that this is probably a good idea for you.
Yeah.
Right. Or if it's a physical activity, it's probably good, right?
Yeah. So
if it's eating clean, it's probably good.
It probably is. There's probably some good intention behind that.
If it's growing you as a human being, which this can be a little bit harder for a detail of me, but if it's growing you as a human being, is it beneficial? Right? Even though the hard conversations or whatever may not actually be easy for you, or they may not be beneficial in your eyes.
Right.
But are these things growing you? Is this person making you a better person?
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, then yeah, you should probably be willing to be like, all right, well, I'm going to the gym.
Yeah, put yourself out there a little bit. Yeah, that's I mean that's the ultimate question, right? It's like, how is this? And it's not selfish, right? This is more of an assessment. It's like, how are they growing me or are they destroying me? That's the question you always have to ask. Like you said, if a person is pushing you to go to the gym, more than likely there is good intention behind that and they're trying to grow you. Right. Now, if they're now, and that's completely opposite from, hey man, let's go out drinking and smoking. Let's just hang out all night. That's more. That's probably it, and that's the blurry line. Just like, is this more of like, okay, we just having fun, like one once in a blue moon. But if this person is encouraging me to do this all the time, and I know the cons of not getting proper rest, not eating properly, smoking, drinking, like doing that all the time, then that person is probably destroying you.
That's right.
But because of the fact, like we touched on earlier, because of the fact that we're not being transparent and not calling it out, and we're just going along with the program, it ultimately does become our fault because it's like, I know this person they do this all the time, but I know what that can lead to.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying no.
Yeah, if a good evaluation for a lot of this is that person living the life that you want to live?
That's it.
Because if they're not, then there's no need to have them in your life.
No need.
I don't care if it's family, friends, whatever.
Yep.
Best friends since kindergarten. If they're not living a life that you would want to live, or something similar to it, or have the same values that you would want to have,
Yep.
There's no point.
And I'll go even further, man. I'm not taking no advice or putting in any stock into what someone is saying if they're not living a life that I admire and respect.
Right.
So if you're telling me I need to do this, I need to do that, and I look at how you're living and I don't respect that, I'm not going to even work myself up to even like get emotionally tied to what you're trying to tell me.
Right.
But if it's somebody that you look up to, you see that they're doing everything right, they're they're living a great lifestyle, they're disciplined, they're faithful to their spouse, whatever, and you're seeing that, and they're challenging, they're telling you that, hey, bro, I think you need to do this. Then I will open myself to what they're saying and actually do more of the internal work as far as like, okay, I hear what they're saying. What do I need to do to implement what they're saying?
Yeah, and then I think a lot of it has to do with like past experience too. Like,
right.
The idea behind it is like, have you done what I'm trying to do?
Right.
Were you successful at it or not? Okay. If you weren't, why? If you were, why? Right. And then being able to start moving in that direction of just actual people assessment.
Yeah.
And the faster you can get better at that, and the faster and the better that you can get at that, the faster that you're going to have that learning curve.
Why do you think it's so scary for people to change circles?
Loneliness.
Mm.
You got something different?
No. I was going to say the same thing. I think a false sense of obligation. Like we touched on it earlier. It's you've been through a lot with this particular circle, but you do feel it inside you where it's like, okay, I do need to move on and be a part of a new circle.
Yeah.
That fits my new mindset on things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what can be scary about it because, like, especially for people let's say you're in a small town, you got your friends you grew up with, but you're experiencing growth and they're not. So there is a sense like a sense false of like obligation and loyalty, where it's like, man, we've been through this, that, third, we've got in trouble together, we've got situations where we almost got arrested. You know, I can't just leave.
Mm-hmm.
But then it does get to a point where it's like, yeah, but you're going to destroy yourself if you don't leave it, and you're going to end up just like them. And it's not saying you're high and mighty or anything, but you got to go with your gut feeling, and you got to go where God's taking you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think that's I think that answers the question. And to do more, the heart more about the loneliness, I think people are scared of being alone.
Oh yeah.
Like that. That's a, you know, I know people. You know, you see quotes and you're like, yeah, you gotta go through it alone. Da da da. And I read those things and I'm like, do people understand how scary that is? To be the only person, like, to be by yourself.
It's also kind of freeing though.
It is. It is freeing. But what's a, I guess for the average person, what's a quicker reaction? The fear or the freedom of it, you know?
Yeah.
I think people will play more into the fear first.
Yeah.
Before they realize that, oh no, it's actually freedom in this.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a massive freedom in it.
Yeah. But you gotta get to that point where you're not afraid to be alone. And that could take a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And that there's definitely a time period there.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because I mean, you see it that some people that get out of one relationship to jump into another, and
Serial daters,
right? And so there is that concept there, but being able to learn yourself and spend time with yourself and feel comfortable just being you by yourself in one location.
It's dope, bro.
Yeah, being able to go to lunch by yourself and just eat. And
Yeah.
not rush through it or not spending time on social media, just being there.
Right.
Dude, there's a piece in that. There's a big piece in that.
Yeah, man. You operate on your own timeline.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not trying to like unconsciously compare yourself. Because sometimes that can happen too when you're around, you know, the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
You're unconsciously, you know, comparing yourself where it's like, oh man, I see how they're living, why I'm not living.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, that can create, you know, jealousy also. But yeah, there has to be some sense of love for yourself to be by yourself, to be able to do things by yourself, to grow by yourself. But I do think you need to do that for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
For me, I'm starting to realize more because we can both, I feel like we both can be lone wolves sometimes. And it is a great feeling though, where it's like, man, I'm handling shit by myself. I'm doing this by myself. I'm getting it out the mud by myself. I'm growing by myself. I'm making a lot of progress by myself. And sometimes that could be a trap as well, because I think you do need to start incorporating like-minded people to help you grow even further.
Yeah.
And so I know for me, like, I used to be the thought of like, I'm just gonna just do this by myself.
Yeah.
But then you realize like you're creating yourself a ceiling with you just want to operate by yourself. Because some, you know, it's all because that's why I like with a true brotherhood is also like people bringing in different perspectives. And so when you get different perspectives, and it's with people that you admire and respect, you can grow even further. And so that's the thing that I'm learning as well. It's like, you know, don't be such a lone wolf. You know, there's a time to be a lone wolf, but then also you don't want to put yourself on an isolated island either, where like you can't have people come and travel to your island and help you build a civilization there. You know?
Yeah. There's a you know what a sarcoma is? It's like something you can't see. Right?
Yeah.
They use it in like psychology as like
Yeah.
something you just can't see about yourself, or like you choose to ignore.
Right.
I could be botching that.
No,
but it's something like that.
Yeah.
And it's something that you may see, but you ignore it. right? Like,
Mhm.
me using Zins. I know it's a problem, but I'm ignoring it, kind of thing. Or on the flip side, the things that you can't see. And a lot of times those things that you can't see are limiting beliefs, right? And when you get around people, and if you're in the lone wolf stage and you stay there,
Mhm.
you're only going to grow as big as your beliefs allow you to grow.
Exactly.
That bringing in external thought challenges your external or your self or your limiting beliefs
Mhm.
and allows you to see things that are possible outside of your own realm.
Right.
Because there's a lot of people who, a lot of people in my circle that make a lot of money that mentally I'm like, yeah, dude, I can envision that, but I don't think about making $100,000 a month.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I just I
Seems like it's not like it can seem like, man, that's not like reachable.
yeah, like, and there's moments where it's like, wow, that's actually a thing people do that on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's crazy
Yeah.
to that because prior to realizing that, um, I had the idea of like, I just need to get to 10. I need to get to 10 and then I'll be cool.
Right.
Or whatever the number is, right?
Yeah.
And that whole idea is you start thinking about it and you're like, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And then you start getting around other people that are maxing out all of their potential
Right.
because they're around other people
Yeah.
that are maxing out their potential.
They're already doing it.
Right. And then so ultimately, and this is obviously just numeral based, but like or monetary based, but this works with anything.
Yeah.
Right. Someone who's never been in a positive relationship gets in a positive relationship or knows somebody who does.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that is possible. Right.
Right.
You don't have to be in a relationship that you cuss and fight at each other.
Right. Right.
Right. Like you start seeing these other options.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what ultimately I think this turns into.
Yeah.
Is the top 5 people that you hang around is who you are.
Birds of a feather flock together. Yeah, you are who you hang around.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that's the biggest thing here is you gotta really, and it sometimes it does take experience. Sometimes you can just see it right off the bat, but in order for you to grow, you're going to have to put yourself in a different situation.
Right.
You think about plants, right? Sometimes a plant might outgrow their original pot, and then you gotta take that plant and put it in another pot, so they can start growing again. So it's like look at yourself as a plant. You just gotta continue to shift pots so you can grow even further.
Yep.
Because you might be in your original pot, the soil just went bad.
Mm-hmm.
So then you were growing, but because you stayed there, now you're dying.
Right. You're not making any progress.
Not making any progress, man.
And ultimately, that's what you want. You want to be able to make a lot more progress in a short amount of time.
That is. And in a short amount of time, but if you can't get it in a short amount of time, I think you gotta have I think that's what you want. But I think you gotta have the mindset that like if this takes me 10, 20, even 30 years,
yeah,
I'm in for the long haul.
Yeah.
So you gotta have that commitment too.
100%. Yeah.
But yeah, but like you said, you wanna aim for that. Hey, let me work hard now and see if I can reap the benefits earlier than later.
Right.
So
cool. Let's tie this thing up, man.
Yes, sir. So start with you, brother. The dangers of false brotherhood, loyalty versus codependency. How can you apply this to the 3 pillars of man?
Spiritually, stay on the path. And if you're on the path, that will ultimately be able to show you the things around you, right? Because it's going to be very clear.
Yep.
The things that are not on that path.
Yep.
What is the book? I have to look back at it. Either way, there's a book. You're going to notice the things that are not on the path that you're on. spiritually because you will be on that direction,
Mhm.
right? And things that are not will either A, not show up,
Mhm.
or they will show up just to show you that this is the
Right.
um
Spoken to.
physically, bro, be around people that are willing to push you physically,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because that's going to go a lot further than anything else. Having your health squared away.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of conversations about health, physical fitness.
Mhm.
I don't think that we push each other as hard on that, just
Mhm.
because we've gotten to a place where, ultimately, we are both locked in.
Yeah.
But there are those moments where, like the past 2 days, I didn't work out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, the past one day, today,
Yeah.
yesterday, I did a little bit of a rut when I got to the office. But
Mhm.
ultimately, the whole idea is like being able to hold each other accountable in that sense, and
Yeah.
that physical fitness life. If you live that life,
Yeah.
people around you are going to notice. Therefore,
Oh,
you will either
100%.
pull them in,
Yeah.
or they will fade away,
Right.
right? Because when you're going out, they're gonna feel bad that you're eating a salad. You know what I mean? Like that whole idea is built off of iron sharpens iron.
100%.
When the mental aspect of it, bro, the ultimate piece is being okay with yourself
Mhm.
and being okay with the decisions that you make.
Yeah.
And then on the back end of that, it comes down to the people that are on the same wavelength as you.
Mhm.
You're gonna have those conversations which will feed you mentally.
Right.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. I like it, man. So I think for me, I'm gonna start with the mind. You have to be around people that respect your boundaries, but also are willing to challenge your boundaries
Mhm.
as well, respectfully though.
Yeah,
Be around people that will take your no as a no. But also be around people that will, challenge your way of thinking, your ideologies about things, and as long as it's not in a disrespectful manner.
yeah,
And don't be so sensitive about the tone of how somebody is saying it, especially when they're challenging like the idea that you have. Understand and look past that and say, okay, is the person that is challenging me, are they coming from a great place?
yeah,
And so I think for the mind, you gotta be around people that will respect your ideas, but also will challenge them physically. Same thing, you gotta be around people that are willing to make you do that extra rep, you know. Um, understand and be around people that understand like, okay, I need to get help get they need to, they're trying to get me to the next step, but they're not trying to hurt me though.
yeah,
Like we've been around people where like they push you so they can hurt you. But you need to be around somebody, from a physical standpoint where it's like, okay, they're just pushing me to get like that extra rep or that extra 3 reps or 5 reps. They see that I'm slacking off on my diet, and so they're telling me like, hey, you need to get back eating right. Have you drunk your gallon of water today?
yeah,
Have you went to have you done jujitsu today? Like, you just gotta be around people that are willing to challenge you. And again, and with the mind, body, and spirit, it's gonna be the same as far as like you gotta be around people that have the right intention with you and respect you for who you are, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with them. And then spiritual, you gotta be around people that are willing to tell you, you know, hey bro, that's not the right thing to do. That's not what we're called to do. That's not your purpose. I think you need to do this, and you need to be around people who might be stronger in that space than you are.
yeah,
And and also you need to be around people that are living the way that I believe um God has allowed us to live. If they're not living a life of higher purpose, I personally think you don't need to be around them,
yeah,
or it has to be that friction there, good friction, where it's like, hey, bro, you're not living right, bro. You need to tighten up, and vice versa. They need to tell you like, hey, bro, that's not the right thing to do. You know, we got a higher purpose than that.
Right.
We need to, you know, you need to tighten up. So, I think for the mind, body, and spirit, that's the biggest thing. You know, you need to be around people that are willing to tell you like how it is, and with good intention.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you know, you just got, and it's going to be with experience. You know, you got to be able to discern. Uh, is this more me not being open to growth, or is it more of the people I'm around that's uh capping me from my growth?
Right.
So that's it. Mind, body, and spirit. Like I always say at the end of each episode, man, we're not investing too much into this. We're just going to invest enough where, you know, we can provide you the content that you love and like, and we just want you to be part of this evolution me and my brother are trying to start. You know, we're just trying to have people join us on just authentic conversations on, us challenging each other, holding each other accountable, and ultimately we want both of us to continue to grow in the mind, body, and spirit. Three pillars of man. Get some.
Boom.